Hello there again, and welcome back to another episode of Veritas Live, our very last episode of the year, in fact. Now, before we get into the details of what we're talking about today, as always, we want to know where are you from? So make sure to let us know in the comments. Just let us know where you're coming from today and where you're watching the show from. Now, with that, I'd like to introduce our guests. Coming up first, we have Tim Burlowski, a senior director in product management who focuses on our hardware and appliance solutions. Also with us is returning guest Dan Rodriguez, who is from the field, and he is a solutions architect. Now, gentlemen, with the holidays coming up, and with Tim's expertise in appliances, I thought it'd be fun for our icebreaker today to include our audience as well. So make sure to post this in the chat as well. But what appliance could you not get through the holidays without? And for no cheating, you can't use a Veritas appliance. So Tim, you're up first. What could you not get through the holidays without?
I love cooking in the kitchen. So I'm going to tell you, I love the sous vide, which is the thing that keeps your food at an exact temperature. Lets you make a steak at exactly like 133.5 degrees. So it's always perfectly done. So that's my favorite.
I am getting hungry already. I'm probably not going to make it through this episode without just starting my way through it. Dan, what appliance could you not get through the holidays without?
I'm actually on the complete opposite end of Tim, and my appliance would be the dishwasher. The last thing you want to do after a good meal is wash dishes. So you want to make sure that you just shove everything in the dishwasher, hit the start button, and you're on your way.
So we have cooking and cleaning all rolled up into one. I love it. It is both tantalizing and practical, your results. Now, we're curious what our audience thinks, so do post that in the chat, and we'll get back to what you say later. But to get to the topic at hand, we're talking about hardware, we're talking about technology, and sort of where we're at today. I'd actually like to start a little bit high level in the cloud, in fact. So when we were thinking about this, we started to look at how cloud instances are deployed today. And when you deploy any kind of cloud instance, it is completely locked down. No SSH unlocked, no RDP. You are in a complete Fort Knox box zone of a machine. And Dan, you've got a lot of cloud expertise up your alley. Why is that the case?
Essentially, you have to go beyond zero trust and take that human element out of security and want to automate as much of the cloud security as possible. You don't want to leave it up to chance that somebody forgets to lock down a port or locks down a machine. So you want to make sure that whatever you deploy in the cloud is as secure as possible from inception.
Very insightful. Tim, what do you think about it? Like, why are we so locked down when we deploy these cloud instances?
Hey, it's been a journey. Like a lot of breaches were caused by people having S3, object buckets that were just completely insecure because they were insecure by default. So that's a little bit of an adjustment that's happened, and it's happened both at the vendor level, meaning the cloud providers, as well as people getting used to, I really need to have it secure by default. But that's the world we live in. That's the best practice. But people still do accidentally leave the keys to the house, in the lock, and it's happened. And the key is make sure you audit, make sure you log, make sure you're always checking up that it's the way you expect it to be.
I love the keys in the house analogy. And speaking of houses, just want to call out, we have people coming in from Florida, San Jose, Chicago, India, and Morocco. Welcome, and thanks for joining us on the episode. Now, I'd like to dig a little bit more into what you started to kind of touch on in regards to the security side of things, Tim. Where does hardware fit into this equation when it comes to the security side of things?
Well, that's an interesting question. I mean, first of all, sometimes people approach me as if, hey, Tim, you do this hardware software solution. Won't that be gone because the cloud is everything? I'm like, well, what is the cloud? It's a bunch of computers. So let's just admit to ourselves there's hardware everywhere powering the revolution. At the same time, I think on-premises versus cloud is going to shift over time. We're seeing that dramatically. And we're happy to power people's private cloud. We're happy to provide software that runs on the public cloud, and we're happy to make that transition as easy as possible. But from my perspective, there's a lot happening in the hardware space around accelerating things like encryption, doing special things with key management, even my phone doing facial recognition to open up my phone. So I still think there's a lot of innovation that's happening in the hardware space related to security.
Very interesting. Dan, what's your take on this?
I mean, I agree 100%. Right now, the hardware shift is definitely moving towards the cloud, but we can't forget about the private clouds, the companies that own data centers across the world. And right now, of course, if you're a startup, the last thing you want to do is build a huge data center in a building you may not own. So cloud is, of course, first thing to go. But for example, those companies that have that ownership of that building and building out that data center, you can't forget about the hardware innovations that are going into that data center. I mean, 10 years ago, think about how large a data center was and how it is now with virtualization and how it's going to be in the future with containerization moving forward.
Oh, totally. And I was just talking to a guy the other day. He's fighting with tier 1 server vendors because he wants to immerse his servers in this sort of crazy fluid that boils at just below the server's operating temperature, so they can evaporate the heat away from things. And I'm like, I'm losing my mind. This is like no longer the realm of crazy hobbyists, but they're talking about exabyte scale kind of virtualization infrastructure. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, the scale that these machines are running at nowadays is amazing compared to what we had 5 years ago, even 10 years ago.
That is an unbelievable setup they've got running there. And I would again throw it to our audience and ask, what is the wildest hardware setup that y'all have seen, or are you working on one right now? And if you beat the submergel of your hardware underwater, we want to know about it. So do let us know. Now, we talked about the hardware, we've talked about cloud. I'm curious to know, when we mix these two things together, what does a good hybrid scenario look like? Is it 50-50 hardware cloud, 60-40? Let's start with you, Dan. What's your take on the scenario?
It's never going to be 0 to 100. You're always going to have some sort of hardware within the data center, no matter what. But we're kind of seeing this shift right now from on-premise to cloud because of the elasticity, because of the ease of use. So we do have a lot of companies out there that are looking at the cloud a little more than how they used to a few years ago, especially with COVID right now. Digital transformation has just been accelerated to a pace where, if you're not looking at the cloud right now, you're running behind.
Definitely. And we've heard that before on previous episodes of Veritas Live as well. Tim, what's your take on the perfect hybrid concoction?
My take is it's going to be more business focused than ever, meaning you're going to take the things that don't matter to your business. I'll give you an example. 15 years ago, set up a business, you would set up like an email server, and that would be part of what you would administer on premise. Today, no one's going to do that. It's a commodity. No one cares. You're going to go to your favorite provider. They're going to provide you emails. They're going to cost you X dollars a month, and you're done. But when it comes to your business and connecting with your customers, what is that thing that is the big difference maker? What is the thing that gets people excited about buying your product? You may keep that on premise because you have a better cost structure. You can provide something unique. It all kind of just depends on how you want the business to run. So from my perspective, it's not going to be about what's the cool technology. It's what makes the final difference to the customer experience and helps you sell your products and services more efficiently. So that could be 80%, it could be 20%. And even some of our born in the cloud companies have made a journey back on premise when they think they can provide something better and cheaper to their customers.
No, I mean, you bring up a great point. It depends on the industry, what it comes down to. I mean, think about a hospital. Are you really going to go to a hospital that's running 100% in the cloud that, a single, internet outage will cause massive astronomical results? Whereas if you have that hardware on site, it's a lot safer. So it's never going to be a full spectrum, 0 to 100 lift and shift to the cloud. There's always going to be some sort of hybrid or some sort of, hardware on site.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it develops. I mean, people are already doing remote surgery processes. Now, the scariest part is what if a backhoe hits that internet line and I'm in the middle, of being cut open? How's that going to work? But that's where the world is going. And if you think about self-driving cars. It's really cool. I can't wait because I'm never going to look for a parking spot again. I'm going to just tell my car, hey, you figure it out, circle around until I get back. End of story. I get a little nervous about the airplane notion, meaning I don't know what those pilots do at the front of the plane, but if they weren't in there, I'd be like, is this really safe? But the world is definitely headed to those kind of directions.
That is a scary notion. I don't know if I could see myself flying on an automated plane, but maybe that's for the younger generations, Now, I know we're talking a lot about sort of the future state of things and the wild combinations we can see out there and the growth and evolution. From a Veritas angle, Tim, I'm curious to hear what you have to say about where we can kind of help, especially for our customers who are in these hybrid environments.
Well, hey, I start with the basics. The cloud is just a bunch of computers. And we've made an amazing number of transitions during my career from old school Unix to Windows to virtualized infrastructure. So to me, this is just another turn of the crank of the evolution. So we're looking at ways to become way more cloud native, to provide easy tools to bridge the gap from on-premises to cloud. And we're succeeding. We have customers who are moving petabytes of data to the cloud, and they're getting the same great disaster recovery, SLAs, the same great backup and recovery SLAs that they've ever had. So the world, to me, looks like us providing that level of service people have depended on us for, but doing it where they need it, just like we always have.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
And kind of jump into Tim's previous thought about commoditization. I mean, Veritas is definitely helping when it comes to commoditizing the cloud. Putting data into the cloud, super easy. Moving it back might be a little problematic, but that's where Veritas can kind of help out and be able to help you move from cloud to cloud, depending on, who has the better offering, who has the better features, the pricing. So there's a lot of different variables that you kind of have to account for when it comes to choosing the right cloud. But being able to move from cloud to cloud at just like a commodity, just like moving electric companies or, any sort of other commodity is huge.
No, it's really cool. I'm digging that. And when I think about it, one of the key components of being able to commoditize other people's services is things like containers. And that's an area where we've made a huge investment so that our software can run anywhere where you've got Kubernetes and container-based ecosystems, which I think gives everyone a lot more portability.
Absolutely. And I do want to call out that if you are watching this and you're curious to know a little bit more about how Veritas can help with your hybrid solutions, do check out the blog recently written by our very own Roger Stein, How to Protect Your Infrastructure Along with Your Data. It touches on a lot of the things that Tim and Dan have been mentioning and even more. It's a great deep dive, and I do recommend the read. Now, before we move into our last question, I do want to call out one of our audience members. Friend of the show, Jonathan Brown, has answered both questions. The holiday appliance he can't live without is his refrigerator, coming to no surprise to any of us. I don't think any of us could. And he also said that he's seen several game companies attempt to launch expansions and games on actual toasters instead of servers. Hardware situations are becoming pure insanity. And I think that's actually a great lead-in to our last question. What does the future hold? Not just for hardware, for cloud, but even beyond that. I want to hear what wild ideas are on the horizon for all of us. Let's start with you, Tim.
Why me first? Oh, crap. I want to go back to the refrigerator. I live in Minnesota, so I can just chuck stuff in the garage and I'm good to go because it's just about the right temp. I considered it, though. When I think about the future, it's going to be even more diverse. And I'll tell you, there was a day when I thought the world would be all Windows and that we just have Intel on Windows. But now we got AMD, we got the Apple M1 chips, we got everything. And then you look at the databases. I thought maybe just Oracle and SQL, but look at all the open source databases. The world has gotten way more diverse, and we're able to take the best of breed solutions and apply them to the right problems. I'm excited about that. And I think this is going to be everywhere from bespoke hardware. And we're seeing that at companies, at the, large scale level, building hardware again. We're seeing a lot of open source engagement everywhere we go. Big companies, everyone's using open source. So to me, the ecosystem looks way more diverse, and I'm going to be focused on what serves the business and what are the killer applications that make a difference to the end user, whether that's a big company and a B2B kind of thing, or an individual user and the next Angry Birds on their phone.
Dan, what's your take? What does the future hold?
So my take's more on the hardware end, whereas Tim was more focused on the software end. Hardware is just going to keep getting faster and smaller. I mean, think about your cell phone nowadays, how small it is compared to what they were when they first came out. The other thing is think about a blade chassis the way they are now, and then how many servers that we can fit into such a small space. So I just think that hardware is just going to evolve to the point where you're going to be able to run a server on something as small as a Raspberry Pi. I mean, you can already do that nowadays. It's not as powerful as running a Blade Center, but having a 5-node Raspberry Pi is not out of the question to just run a test Kubernetes cluster or something simple like a web server. So it's just going to get faster and smaller.
Now, how do you think?
I gotta say,
oh, go ahead, Tim.
We missed something, Anthony, which is the advent of real AI ML techniques to actually predict what's coming. We're using it in our own products in some cool ways, but I am excited about what that brings. So that's an area where you just can't understate it. And when I think about what Dan was saying, it's being able to do that with clusters of machines so that we can get all of that power into predicting the future and helping us, maybe even just type that next sentence in email. And it's kind of mind-blowing how much more efficient it's making us.
And I'm curious where this fits in with even containerization. I'm imagining something like Dan's talking about, small little containerized AIs that pop in, do a task, disappear. I don't know if that's killing off sentience or what, but I mean, the future has some wild possibilities for us on the horizon. Any final thoughts on what we might see coming down the pipe from either of you?
From a software standpoint, I love the open source concept. It really brings the competitive nature of software out, where you're able to not just purchase a product and use it, but create your own product. I think that's very innovative, and it keeps the market fresh with new ideas.
Absolutely. Well, the future seems bright, and the future definitely seems hybrid. You've once again convinced me that it's not an and or an or. I guess it is an and. It's both. It's both together. So thank you. Yes, absolutely. And as always, I want to thank both Tim and Dan for their expertise and bringing us all of the insights they have when it comes to hardware and appliance solutions and the cloud, platforms as a service, and beyond. Y'all have been great. Thank you so much, as always. Now, I do want to mention that this being the last episode of Veritas Live for the year, don't be dismayed. In 3 weeks on December the 28th, we will have something special for you. It'll be holiday related. It'll be fun. I do recommend you tune in and check it out. But if you don't, we will see you bright and early in the new year for the next episode of Veritas Live. Thank you as always for watching, and we hope to see you there.